The little girl's hand pressed against the frosted window of the most dangerous man in Chicago. And he looked up. In a city where survival means knowing when to run and when to stay invisible, Nadia Carter was about to discover that sometimes the safest place is right next to the fire. Because when a man who's never known mercy meets a child who's never known safety, something breaks. Something shifts. And nothing will ever be the same. Welcome to our channel, where broken souls find redemption in the arms of the last people they should trust. And love becomes an act of rebellion against fate itself. If you believe that even the darkest hearts can learn to protect instead of destroy, hit that subscribe button and smash the like to support stories that'll make you believe in second chances. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from tonight. We read every single one, and we love hearing from you across the world. Now let's go back to New Year's Eve, Chicago, where a winter storm was about to change 3 lives forever. The wind didn't just blow through the south side. It carved through skin, through bone, through any illusion that the world gave a damn whether you froze or survived. Nadia Carter felt it slice past the duct tape holding her apartment window together, felt it wrap around her daughter's small body even through 2 blankets and her own thin frame. Stacy was shivering. Had been for hours. The radiator had given up 3 days ago. The landlord hadn't answered 4 calls, and Nadia's bank account had $7.32 until Friday, 2 days away, when her last client payment cleared. If it cleared. "Mama, I'm cold." Stacy's voice was so small. 5 years old, and she'd already learned not to complain too loudly, not to ask for things they couldn't afford. That knowledge sat like a stone in Nadia's chest. "I know, baby. I know." Nadia pulled her closer, rubbing small arms that felt too thin, too fragile. "We're going to go somewhere warm soon, okay?" The library closed at 6 on New Year's Eve. The shelter on 47th was full. She'd called. Her phone was at 12% battery, and her camera equipment, her only source of income, sat in its worn bag by the door like a talisman she couldn't afford to lose. Outside, snow fell in sheets, erasing the city. Inside, Nadia made a decision. "Get your coat, sweetheart, the purple one." Stacy's eyes went wide, the kind of wide that came from knowing something was wrong, but not understanding what. "Are we leaving?" "Just for a little while." Nadia's hands were steady as she zipped up her daughter's coat, even though her heart was hammering. The coat was too thin. Everything they owned was too thin. "We're going to find somewhere warm to sit for a bit." She'd passed the cafe on State Street 100 times, looked through its gold-lit windows at people who belonged in places like that, people whose coats didn't have frayed cuffs, whose boots weren't held together, with hope and superglue. But it was warm. It was open. And she had $7. That would buy 1 hot chocolate, maybe 2 if she asked for water instead. Nadia shouldered her camera bag, took Stacy's hand, and stepped into the storm. The cold was immediate, vicious. It stole the breath from her lungs, turned her exhales into white clouds that vanished into the dark. Stacy made a small sound, not quite a cry, too experienced for that. And Nadia squeezed her hand tighter. "Almost there. Baby. See the lights?" 3 blocks felt like 30. By the time they reached the cafe's entrance, Nadia's fingers were numb, her face burning with cold. The door was heavy, real wood, brass handle, and when she pulled it open, heat rushed out like a benediction. The cafe was everything their apartment wasn't. Warm, golden, the scent of coffee and cinnamon wrapped around them like a blanket. Soft jazz played from invisible speakers. Every table held people who looked like they'd never worried about radiators or $7 bank accounts. Nadia felt every eye turn toward them. A woman in a thin coat and cheaper boots, holding a child who was visibly shaking. She lifted her chin, walked to the counter like she had every right to be there. "1 hot chocolate, please, large." The barista, a kid maybe 20 with kind eyes, glanced at Stacy. "You want whipped cream on that?" "Yes, please." Nadia pulled out 5 crumpled bills, smoothed them on the counter with cold, stiff fingers. "And for you?" "Just water. Thank you." She saw the look. The quick calculation. Mother spending her last dollars on her kid, nothing for herself. Nadia was used to that look. She'd learned to let it slide off, to take her change and her dignity and find a table in the corner where they could be invisible. But Stacy wasn't invisible. She never was. The little girl tugged her hand free, wandered toward the window where snow created moving art against the glass. Nadia followed, set down the hot chocolate, wrapped both hands around her daughters to warm them. "Better?" Stacy nodded, took a sip, got whipped cream on her nose. For a moment, just a moment, the world was okay. They were warm. They were safe. The door opened. Cold air rushed in, and with it, 3 men in expensive coats. Nadia didn't look up. Didn't need to. She'd developed a 6th sense for danger, for men who took up too much space, whose presence shifted the air pressure in a room. She kept her eyes on Stacy, on the hot chocolate, on anything except, "Mr. Montana, your usual table?" The barista's voice changed, went careful, respectful in the way people got around power, around men who didn't need to raise their voices to be heard. Nadia's stomach tightened. She knew that name. Everyone in Chicago knew that name, even if they pretended not to. Richard Montana, the man the Tribune called a business entrepreneur, and everyone else called exactly what he was. Don't look up. Don't make eye contact. Finish the drink and leave. But Stacy was 5, and 5-year-olds didn't understand invisible. "Mama, look at that man's coat. It's so shiny." "Stacy, shh." Too late. The words carried across the quiet cafe. Nadia felt heat crawl up her neck, felt the weight of attention shift toward them. She risked a glance, just one, and immediately wished she hadn't. Richard Montana stood 10 feet away, in the process of shrugging off a black wool coat that probably cost more than her rent. He was tall. She registered that first. Tall and built like someone who'd never been soft, whose body was a weapon kept in sharp condition. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes the color of steel in winter. He looked exactly like what he was. Powerful, controlled, dangerous. And he was looking directly at Stacy. Nadia's hand found her daughter's shoulder, pulled her closer. Protective. Automatic. Montana's expression didn't change. He handed his coat to one of the men with him. Bodyguards, had to be. And said something too quiet to hear. Then he moved toward his table, and Nadia exhaled. Crisis averted. They'd finish the drink, wait out another 20 minutes of warmth, then brave the cold back to their freezing apartment and... Stacy knocked over the hot chocolate. It happened so fast. 1 second the cup was on the table. The next it was tipping, falling, hot liquid spreading across the surface in a brown wave that dripped onto the floor, onto Nadia's camera bag, onto... Nadia lunged, grabbed napkins, started soaking up the mess with hands that shook, from cold, from stress, from the crushing weight of watching their $7 pool on expensive tile. She didn't cry. Wouldn't. Just pressed napkins into the spreading puddle and tried to salvage what she could. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." "It's okay, baby. It's okay." But it wasn't. Nothing was okay. They'd have to leave now, go back into the storm with nothing warm inside Stacy, nothing to show for the last of their money except... "Miss." The voice came from above. Low. Careful. Nadia looked up. Richard Montana stood beside their table holding a stack of clean napkins. Up close, he was even more imposing. 6 foot something of controlled power in a black suit that fit like it had been sewn onto him. But his eyes weren't cold. They were focused, intent, fixed on the spreading mess with an expression Nadia couldn't read. "Let me help." It wasn't a question. He was already crouching. Actually, crouching. This man in his $1,000 suit, and pressing napkins to the floor, soaking up hot chocolate with the same precision he probably applied to everything. Nadia's brain stalled. You don't have to do that." "I know." He didn't look at her, just kept cleaning, methodical and silent. One of his men appeared with a mop, and within 60 seconds the mess was gone, the floor pristine, like it had never happened. Montana stood, handed the soaked napkins to his associate. Then finally he looked at Nadia. "The drink's on me. What would your daughter like?" No, thank you. We're fine. Mama, I'm still cold." Stacy's voice was so small, her hand tugging Nadia's coat. And God, the way she looked up at Montana, like he was just another adult, just another person, no fear in those wide brown eyes because she didn't know, didn't understand who he was. Montana's jaw tightened. Something flickered across his face. There and gone so fast Nadia almost missed it. He turned to the counter, said something to the barista, and within moments, a fresh, hot chocolate appeared. Large, extra whipped cream, and a blueberry muffin Nadia definitely hadn't ordered. "Please." He set it on their table, careful not to spill. "It's cold out there." Nadia should have said no. Should have grabbed Stacy and left, because accepting favors from men like him came with prices she couldn't afford. But Stacy's hand was ice cold in hers, and the muffin was warm, and... "Thank you." The words felt strange in her mouth. We'll pay you back." "No need." He stepped back, creating distance. Professional. Impersonal. Like he'd already forgotten about them. "Stay as long as you need. Storm's getting worse." Then he was gone, returning to his table where 2 men in expensive suits waited. They bent their heads together, discussing something in low voices. Business. The kind Nadia didn't want to imagine. She broke off a piece of muffin, handed it to Stacy. Watched her daughter eat with the kind of hunger that came from too many missed meals, too many nights with not quite enough. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, they were warm. For now. An hour passed, then 2. Nadia nursed a water she didn't ask for but appeared anyway. Stacy drew pictures on napkins with a pen the kind barista provided. And Richard Montana sat at his table, occasionally glancing their way when he thought Nadia wasn't looking. She felt each glance like a touch. Couldn't help it. At 8 o'clock, she stood. "Time to go, sweetheart." "But Mama, it's still snowing." "I know, but we can't stay here all night." Stacy's face fell. She looked toward the window where snow had piled 6 inches deep against the glass, and something in her small body went tense. Fear. Real fear. Is Daddy coming tonight? The question dropped into Nadia's stomach like a stone. William. Her ex-husband. The reason they lived in a falling-apart apartment with a broken radiator. The reason she changed. Her last name, her phone number, her entire life. He'd called 3 days ago, first time in 8 months, drunk and rambling about his family and coming to get what's his. She'd hung up, blocked the number, pretended it didn't make her hands shake. "No, baby, Daddy's not coming." But Stacy was 5, and 5-year-olds heard the lies adults told. "You're scared of him." Not a question, an observation. Nadia's throat closed. She couldn't lie. Wouldn't. Sometimes grown-ups. Sometimes they have complicated feelings. "I don't want to see him." Stacy's eyes filled with tears. "Last time he was mean. He hurt you." Nadia knelt fast, pulled her daughter close, pressed her face into small hair that smelled like cheap shampoo and baby powder. "He's not going to hurt anyone, I promise. Can we stay somewhere else tonight, please?" The word please broke her. Nadia closed her eyes, felt hot tears slip down cold cheeks, and had no answer. No shelter would take them this late. Her friend, Maya, was visiting family in Michigan, and going back to that dark, freezing apartment while William's voice echoed in her memory. "Excuse me." Nadia's eyes flew open. Richard Montana stood 3 feet away, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. But his eyes, those winter steel eyes, were fixed on Stacy with an intensity that made Nadia's protective instincts flare. She stood, put herself between them. "Yes?" "I'm sorry, I couldn't help overhearing." His voice was quiet, controlled. "You need a place to stay tonight." It wasn't a question. Nadia's spine went rigid. "We're fine. Thank you for—" "No, you're not." He said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. "It's 12 degrees outside, the shelters are full, and someone's looking for you." Ice flooded Nadia's veins. "How do you—" "Because I recognize the look." His eyes met hers. "I've seen it before." Silence. The cafe had emptied while they'd sat there, leaving just them and the closing staff. Outside, the storm had turned the city into a whiteout. Montana pulled a card from his jacket, set it on the table between them. Matte black, silver lettering, an address, nothing else. "My home, guest house, separate entrance, full kitchen, heat that works." He paused. No strings, no expectations, just a warm place for the night. Nadia stared at the card like it might bite. I can't accept." "Mama, I'm scared." Stacy's hand fisted in her coat. "Please, can we go somewhere safe?" The word safe coming from her daughter's mouth, directed at a man whose reputation was built on violence, should have been absurd, should have sent Nadia running. But Stacy was looking up at Richard Montana with hope in her eyes. Pure, uncomplicated hope. And he was looking back at her with something Nadia couldn't name. Something that looked almost like recognition, understanding. Like he saw himself in this frightened child and couldn't walk away. "One night," Nadia heard herself say. "Just until the storm passes." Montana nodded once. "My car's outside. I'll drive you." As they followed him into the cold, Stacy's hand tight in hers, Nadia wondered if she'd just made the best decision of her life. Or the worst. The car was warm. That was the first thing Stacy noticed, pressing her small hands against the leather seat that heated beneath her palms like magic. The second thing was the man driving. The one with the serious face who'd bought them hot chocolate and didn't seem scary, even though Mama's shoulders were tight in that way that meant she was worried. "You can adjust the temperature if you need," Richard said, eyes on the road. Snow fell so thick his wipers worked double time. "Controls are on your right." Nadia's hand hovered over the panel, then withdrew. "This is fine, thank you." Stacy watched her mother sit perfectly still, camera bag clutched on her lap like a shield. The quiet felt heavy, grown-up heavy, the kind that happened when adults were thinking loud thoughts they wouldn't say out loud. "Tio," Stacy said, because the silence made her tummy hurt. "Your car is really warm." In the rearview mirror, the man's eyes found hers. "Tio?" "It means uncle," Nadia said quickly. In Portuguese, her father was... She stopped. "She calls friendly adults that sometimes. I'm sorry if... It's fine." Something in his voice softened, just slightly. "You can call me Rich if you'd like, or Mr. Montana." "Rich is nice," Stacy decided. "Do you have kids?" The silence that followed felt different, colder somehow, even though the heat still poured from the vents. "No, just that. One word. Oh. Stacy swung her legs, watching the city blur past in whites and grays. We don't have a car. Mama says cars are expensive. Stacy. Nadia's voice carried a warning. But Rich, Mr. Montana, glanced in the mirror again, and this time something almost like a smile touched his mouth. They are expensive. Your mama's smart. She's the smartest, Stacy agreed. She takes pictures of people and makes them look beautiful, even when they're not. Stacy Elizabeth Carter. It's true. You said Mrs. Chen looked like a movie star and she's 80 and has 3 teeth. This time the sound that came from Rich was definitely almost a laugh. Small, rusty, like he didn't use it often. The car turned onto a quiet street where houses sat far apart, hidden behind gates and old trees heavy with snow. Nadia's hand tightened on her camera bag as they pulled up to a gate that opened automatically, revealing a long driveway that curved through darkness. The house, mansion, rose out of the night like something from Stacy's picture books. All stone and tall windows and lights glowing gold against the snow. Beautiful, imposing. Nothing like their apartment with its peeling paint and broken radiator. The guest house is separate, Rich said, pulling around to a smaller building set back from the main structure. Used to be the groundskeeper's cottage. It's fully stocked. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, everything you need. He parked, killed the engine. The sudden silence felt loud. Nadia didn't move. Mr. Montana, why are you doing this? Rich's hands tightened on the wheel. In the dashboard light, his profile was sharp angles and controlled tension. Because no child should be cold on New Year's Eve. But you don't know us. No. He turned, met her eyes. But I know what it's like to be scared in your own home. And I know what it's like when no one helps. The words hung in the warm air. Stacy looked between them, trying to understand the grown-up thing happening, the way Mama's eyes went shiny and Rich's jaw got tight. Just tonight, Nadia whispered. Tomorrow we'll see what tomorrow brings. Rich opened his door. Let's get inside. The cottage was perfect. That was the problem. Nadia stood in the living room, hardwood floors, cream sofa, actual artwork on the walls, and felt the distance between their lives stretch into an impossible canyon. The kitchen had granite counters. The bathroom had heated floors. The bedroom had a king-size bed with a white duvet that looked like clouds. Stacy ran from room to room, exclaiming over every discovery. Mama, there's fancy soap, and towels this big. She emerged from the bathroom, dragging a towel half her size. Can we take a bath? We'll see, baby. Nadia set down her camera bag with hands that shook slightly. Exhaustion was catching up, the adrenaline of the day, crashing into the warmth and safety and impossible generosity of this place. Rich stood by the door, having carried in their meager belongings. 1 backpack, 1 camera bag, the sum total of everything they'd grabbed in their rush to escape the cold. He looked out of place here, too, despite owning it. Too big, too sharp, like a weapon in a room designed for peace. The refrigerator's stocked, he said. Basic groceries, nothing fancy, but enough for a few days if you need. We won't need it. Nadia straightened her spine. Tomorrow the storm will pass and we'll go home. I'll pay you back for tonight somehow. I can do a photo session or... I don't want your money. Then what do you want? The question came out sharper than she intended. Harsher. Because men like him didn't do things for free. Didn't offer shelter without expecting something. And she'd learned that lesson hard with William. Learned that kindness was often just the long con before the cruelty. Rich's expression didn't change. I want you and your daughter to be warm tonight. That's all. That's not all. Men don't... Nadia stopped, aware of Stacy in the next room. Lowered her voice. People don't just help strangers. Not like this. Some people do. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed her the screen. My private number. You need anything. Anything. You call. I'm in the main house. Nadia stared at the number. 10 digits that connected to Richard Montana, a man whose name made grown men nervous. Why? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, when I was 7, my mother needed help. She asked neighbors, family, anyone who would listen. No one came. His eyes met hers. I'm not no one. The words landed in Nadia's chest, heavy and true, and somehow more frightening than any threat, because they meant he understood. Really understood. And understanding from dangerous men was more dangerous than hatred. Thank you. She didn't know what else to say. For all of this. He nodded, once, turned to leave, stopped at the door. The man you're afraid of, your ex-husband. Nadia's blood went cold. How did you... Your daughter said Daddy's coming back in the cafe. You went pale. Rich's voice stayed level, factual. I have resources. Security. If he's a threat... No. The word came fast, defensive. I can handle William. I don't need... I'm not offering to handle him. Rich's eyes held hers. I'm offering information. If he comes looking, my people will know. And they'll tell you, that's all. It should have sounded insane. Should have sent every alarm bell screaming. But instead, Nadia felt something loosen in her chest. Just slightly. Just enough to breathe. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Rich left without another word, the door clicking shut behind him. Through the window, Nadia watched him walk through the snow toward the main house, a dark figure against white landscape, and wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. Mama, there's a TV and it works, and there's cartoons. Stacy's voice pulled her back. Right. Focus on now, on warmth, on the fact that her daughter was safe and happy for the first time in months. Tomorrow she'd worry about the cost. Tonight, she'd let them be warm. The bath was a revelation. Stacy had never been in a tub this deep, with water this hot, bubbles that smelled like vanilla instead of the cheap dollar store soap they usually used. Nadia knelt beside the tub, washing small hair, watching her daughter play with foam, like it was treasure. This is the best day ever, Stacy announced, stacking bubbles on her head. Is it? Nadia's throat tightened. Uh-huh. We got hot chocolate and we met Rich, and now we're in a castle. She looked up with those impossibly trusting brown eyes. Are we going to stay here? No, baby. This is just for tonight. But why? It's warm here, and Rich is nice. Nice. Such a simple word for such a complicated man. It's not our home, Nadia said gently. This is Rich's home. We're just visiting. But our home is broken. The heater doesn't work, and the window has tape, and... Stacy's lower lip trembled. I don't want to go back there. What if Daddy finds us? Nadia pulled her daughter from the tub, wrapped her in one of those impossibly soft towels, held her close. Daddy won't find us. I promise. You always say that. Stacy's voice was muffled against her shoulder. But you're scared of him too. I can tell. Sometimes 5-year-olds saw too much. Nadia carried her to the bedroom, dressed her in the only pajamas they'd brought, pink with faded unicorns. The bed swallowed them both when they climbed in, soft and warm and safe, in a way their lumpy futon had never been. Mama? Stacy's voice was getting sleepy. Why was Rich sad when I asked if he had kids? I don't know, baby. I think he'd be a good daddy. He has kind eyes. Nadia's breath caught. Kind eyes. On a man whose business was violence and control. But Stacy wasn't wrong. There had been Something in the way he'd looked at her daughter. Something careful, gentle, almost wounded. "Sleep now," she whispered, stroking Stacy's hair. Within minutes, her daughter was out, breathing deep and even. Nadia stayed beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of a house that wasn't hers, wondering how they'd gone from freezing in their apartment to this. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Heat's adjustable via thermostat on wall. Extra blankets in closet if needed. Sleep. Well, Richard. Checking on them like what? What was this? Charity? Guilt? Something else? Nadia typed back, "Thank you. We're fine." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Good. Lock the door. Security's on the property, but they won't bother you unless you need something. Security. Right. Because his world required armed guards and surveillance, while hers just required surviving day to day. She set the phone down, pulled Stacy closer, and let exhaustion pull her under. In the main house. Richard Montana stood at his bedroom window, looking out at the cottage where lights burned against the dark. His phone sat on the nightstand, Nadia's last text still glowing on the screen. He should go to bed. Should focus on tomorrow's meeting with the Russians, the casino deal that was going south, the 1,000 problems that required his attention. But all he could see was a small girl with frightened eyes, asking if they could stay somewhere safe, and a woman so bone-tired she'd accepted help from a stranger because she had no other choice. His mother had looked like that once. Exhausted, desperate, trapped. No one had helped her. Richard turned from the window, jaw tight, and made a decision he'd probably regret. He pulled out his phone, dialed his head of security. "Marcus, I need you to run a background check. William Carter, former husband of Nadia Carter, current address unknown." He paused. "I want to know everything. Where he is, what he's doing, if he's a threat." "Boss, we doing protective detail now?" "Just get me the information." He hung up, stared at his phone, and wondered when exactly he'd crossed the line from offering shelter to getting involved. Probably the moment a 5-year-old called him Tio and looked at him like he was safe. Morning came soft and golden through windows that didn't have duct tape holding them together. Nadia woke slowly, confused by warmth and silence and the absence of sirens that usually pulled her from sleep. For 3 perfect seconds, she didn't remember where she was. Then she did, and panic set in. Stacy was gone. Nadia bolted upright, heart hammering, scanning the empty bed. "Stacy." "In here, Mama." The voice came from the kitchen. Nadia threw off the covers, slept in her clothes, couldn't afford to be vulnerable even here, and rushed to find her daughter standing on a chair at the counter, pouring cereal into a bowl with intense concentration. "Baby, you scared me." "I was hungry, but I was..." "Quiet. I didn't wake you." Stacy beamed, proud of her independence. "There's so much food, Mama. Look." She was right. The refrigerator held milk, eggs, fresh fruit, bread, cheese, basics, like Rich had said, but more variety than they'd seen in months. The cabinets had cereals, pasta, canned goods, enough to feed them for a week. Nadia's hands trembled as she steadied the milk carton Stacy had left teetering on the counter. "Sweetheart, we can't just take his food." He said it's for us. "That's what you said last night." Stacy hopped down from the chair. "Can I watch cartoons while I eat?" Before Nadia could answer, a knock sounded at the door. Every muscle in her body locked. Through the window, she could see a figure on the small porch. Not Rich, someone broader, older, wearing a heavy jacket. "Stay here," she told Stacy, then immediately grabbed her daughter's hand, because leaving her alone felt impossible. Together, They approached the door. "Ms. Carter?" The voice was gruff, but not unkind. "I'm Marcus, head of security for Mr. Montana. Just doing a morning check." Nadia cracked the door open. The man was in his 50s, with gray-shot hair and the build of someone who'd spent a lifetime doing physical work. His eyes were sharp, but not threatening. "We're fine," she said automatically. "Good to hear. Mr. Montana wanted me to let you know the roads are still bad from the storm. City's advising people stay put until the plows come through." He held up a paper bag. "Fresh bagels from the bakery in town. Cream cheese in there, too." Nadia stared at the bag like it might explode. "You didn't have to. Boss's orders, ma'am." Marcus set it on the porch railing. "You need anything? There's a phone in the kitchen. Just dial 1 for the main house. Someone's always available." He left before she could protest, trudging through knee-deep snow back toward the main house. Nadia grabbed the bag, shut the door, leaned against it. "More food." Stacy was delighted. "Rich is really nice, Mama." Nice, that word again. Like kindness from a man like Richard Montana was simple, uncomplicated, safe. Nadia's phone buzzed. "Roads won't clear until tomorrow at earliest. Stay as long as you need. No rush." Richard, of course. Probably watching the cottage from some window, making sure they weren't inconvenienced, playing the perfect host while she spiraled trying to understand what this was. She typed back, "We can't impose for days. You're not imposing, you're accepting help. There's a difference." Nadia stared at the message. In her experience, there wasn't a difference. Help came with prices, obligations, expectations that revealed themselves later, when you were already in too deep to refuse. But the cottage was warm. Stacy was eating fresh bagels and laughing at cartoons. And outside, the world was buried in white, making their broken apartment with its frozen radiator feel impossibly far away. "Just one more day," she whispered to herself. "Then, we leave." The day stretched long and quiet. Nadia tried to work, editing photos on her laptop, responding to client emails. But concentration felt impossible with Stacy exploring every corner of the cottage like it was Disneyland. "Mama, there's books. Real books, not just the library ones we have to give back. Mama, the shower has 3 settings. Mama, can we make lunch? There's bread and cheese, and we could make grilled cheese and—" "Yes, baby, we can make grilled cheese." They cooked, together in the kitchen, that was bigger than their entire apartment. Stacy stood on her chair, carefully placing cheese on bread while Nadia heated the pan. Simple, domestic, almost normal, if normal included hiding from your ex-husband in a mobster's guest house. The grilled cheese was perfect, crispy and golden and exactly what comfort food should be. They ate at the small dining table, watching snow fall past the window in fat, lazy flakes. "I like it here," Stacy said around a mouthful of sandwich. "Can we stay forever?" "Stacy, I know, it's not our house." She swung her legs. "But maybe Rich would let us visit sometimes? When it's cold?" Nadia's chest ached. "Maybe. Eat your lunch." A knock interrupted them. Different from this morning. Lighter, almost hesitant. Through the window, Nadia saw Richard Montana standing on the porch, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable in a way that seemed foreign to someone so naturally commanding. She opened the door. "Mr. Montana." "Rich," he corrected quietly. Up close, in daylight, he looked less imposing. Tired, maybe. Lines around his eyes that spoke to sleepless nights and heavy responsibilities. "Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to check if you had everything you needed." "Yes, more than enough. Thank you." Nadia kept the door half closed, aware of Stacy behind her, aware of how this looked. Her in borrowed space, him on his own property. The power imbalance impossible to ignore. The security report came. Back on the roads. Main streets are clear, but side streets won't be plowed until late tomorrow. I know you wanted to leave. We can't stay another night. Why not? The question was so direct it stopped her. Nadia blinked. Because we're already imposing, and you've done enough, and you're not imposing. Rich's voice stayed level. The cottage sits empty most of the year. You being here doesn't affect me. Rich. Stacy appeared at Nadia's side, beaming. We made grilled cheese. Do you want some? Mama made extra. Something shifted in his expression. Softened. I don't want to intrude. You're not truding. Stacy grabbed his hand, just reached out and took it like it was the most natural thing in the world, and tugged. Come on, it's really good. Nadia watched this man, this dangerous, powerful man, let a 5-year-old pull him inside, let her lead him to the table, let her boss him into a chair while she ran to get another plate. She's very... Rich searched for words. Trusting, Nadia supplied, moving to the kitchen on autopilot. Too trusting sometimes. Brave, I was going to say. His eyes followed Stacy as she carefully carried a plate to him, tongue between her teeth in concentration. Thank you. You're welcome. Mama, should we get him something to drink? They ended up with 3 glasses of orange juice and a plate of grilled cheese sandwiches between them. Surreal didn't begin to cover it, sitting at a table with Richard Montana while he ate comfort food and listened to Stacy chatter about cartoons and snow and the fact that she'd never seen a house this big before. Do you live in the big house all by yourself? Stacy asked. Stacy, that's rude. Yes, Rich said. Just me. That's sad. Stacy swung her legs. Houses should have people in them. That's what makes them homes. Right, Mama? Nadia's throat closed. Right, baby. Rich was quiet, staring at his sandwich like it held answers. Then, you're right. It is sad. The admission hung in the air. Nadia found herself studying him. Really studying him. The way his shoulders curved slightly forward, like he was trying to make himself smaller. The way his hands rested carefully on the table, not quite relaxed. The way his eyes kept drifting to Stacy with something that looked like hunger. Not the predatory kind. The starving kind. Like he'd been alone so long he'd forgotten what warmth felt like. Why don't you get married and have babies? Stacy asked with the blunt honesty of children everywhere. Then you wouldn't be lonely. Stacy Elizabeth. It's okay. Rich met Stacy's eyes. That's a good question. I guess I never found the right person. Oh. Stacy considered this seriously. Mama says the right person is someone who makes you feel safe. Is that true? Yes, Rich said softly. That's very true. Then you should find someone who makes you feel safe. Like how Mama makes me feel safe. Even when we're cold or scared, I know she'll protect me. Stacy smiled at Nadia with pure, uncomplicated love. Nadia's eyes burned. She blinked fast, looked away, found Rich watching her with an expression she couldn't name. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. Your Mama's very brave, he said to Stacy, but his eyes stayed on Nadia. I know. Stacy finished her sandwich. Can I go watch TV? Yes, baby. Go ahead. Stacy bounded off, leaving silence in her wake. Nadia stood, started clearing plates with hands that needed something to do. Rich stood too, helped without asking, carrying glasses to the sink. You don't have to. I know. He rinsed a plate, but I'm already here. They worked in silence. Nadia washed, Rich dried, and something about the domesticity of it felt more intimate than any conversation, like they were playing house, pretending at normalcy while the world outside stayed frozen. She looks like you, Rich said quietly. Your daughter. Everyone says she has her father's eyes. Nadia's hands stilled in the soapy water. I hate that. The eyes don't matter. The way she looks at the world, that's all you. He paused. Brave, kind, trusting even when she probably shouldn't be. Trusting gets you hurt. Sometimes. Rich set down the towel. Sometimes it saves you. Nadia turned to face him, this man in her space, in her temporary borrowed space, and felt something shift. Why are you really doing this? The cottage, the food, all of it? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, come with me. I want to show you something. They walked through the snow to the main house, Stacy staying behind to watch cartoons under Marcus's watchful supervision. The mansion was even more impressive inside. Marble floors, art that probably cost more than Nadia would make in 10 years, rooms that echoed with emptiness. Rich led her upstairs, down a hallway, stopped in front of a closed door. I don't come in here, he said. Haven't since I was 17. He opened it. The room was frozen in time. A bedroom, small and feminine. Floral curtains faded by years of sunlight. A dresser with photos in cheap frames. A bed made with military precision, like someone had straightened the covers and never returned. My mother's room, Rich said from the doorway. Didn't enter. Couldn't, from the look on his face. She died when I was 7. My father, he wasn't kind to her. To us. Nadia's heart cracked. She stepped inside, looked at the photos. A young woman with kind eyes holding a dark-haired boy. Both smiling. Both happy. In that moment before everything fell apart. I couldn't protect her, Rich continued, voice flat, factual. I was too small, too weak. I had to watch him hurt her over and over, and no one came to help. No one cared. Rich, when I see your daughter looking at you the way I used to look at my mother, like you're her whole world, I can't. He stopped, breathed. I can't walk away. Not again. Nadia turned to face him. This powerful man standing in a doorway, unable to enter a room that held his ghosts. We're not your responsibility. I know. His eyes met hers. But you could be my choice. The words settled between them, heavy and honest and terrifying. I don't need saving, Nadia whispered. I'm not offering to save you. Rich's voice was quiet, certain. I'm offering to stand beside you. There's a difference. In the cottage, Stacy's laughter drifted through the window. In this room, ghosts watched from faded photographs. And between them, something fragile began to take root. One more day, Nadia heard herself say. We'll stay one more day. Rich nodded, closed the door on his past. Together they walked back toward the sound of Stacy's joy. 3 days became a week. The week became 10 days. And somewhere in the snow-quiet rhythm of mornings in the cottage, and evenings when Rich appeared at the door with groceries or books or things I thought Stacy might like, Nadia stopped counting. She told herself it was practical. Her apartment's radiator was still broken. The landlord had stopped returning calls entirely. The city was buried under record snowfall. Stacy had stopped having nightmares for the first time in months. Practical reasons. Safe reasons. Not the way her breath caught when Rich knelt to Stacy's level to help her build a snowman. Not the way his rare smiles made her chest feel too small. Not the way she'd started to notice things. How he took his coffee black. How his jaw tensed when business calls. Went badly, how he always sat where he could see the door. Hypervigilance. She recognized it because she had it too. Mama, look! Stacy burst through the cottage door, covered in snow and joy. Rich taught me how to make a snow angel. Come see. In a minute, baby. I'm working. Please, It's really good. Nadia saved her work, editing photos for a client, the income she desperately needed, and followed her daughter outside. The cold hit immediately, but the sun was brilliant, turning the snow into diamonds. Rich stood by the main house, brushing snow off his coat. He'd been outside for over an hour, playing with Stacy while Nadia worked. Not because she'd asked, just because. The snow angels were perfect, one large, one small, side by side like a father and daughter. See? Stacy pointed. That one's Rich and that one's me. We're a team. Nadia's throat tightened. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Make one with us, then we'll all be together. I can't, baby. I have to finish. This job. Just one. Please? Stacy's eyes went wide and pleading, the look Nadia could never refuse. She sighed, handed her phone to Rich without thinking. If I end up with pneumonia, I'll personally ensure you get the best medical care available, he said, deadpan, taking the phone. Nadia shot him a look, then let Stacy pull her down into the snow. Cold seeped through her jeans immediately, but Stacy's laughter was worth it. She moved her arms and legs, creating wings and skirt, feeling ridiculous and young and almost happy. When she stood, Rich offered his hand. She took it without thinking, let him pull her up, and found herself close enough to see gold flecks in his gray eyes. Your lips are turning blue, he observed. I'm fine. You're freezing. He shrugged out of his coat, expensive, black, probably cashmere, and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. Stacy, let's get your mom inside before she becomes a snow angel permanently. The coat held his warmth, his scent, something cedar and clean. Nadia pulled it tighter, trying not to think about how safe it made her feel. That night, Rich stayed for dinner. It started casually. Stacy begging him to try Mama's spaghetti, him accepting with reluctance that felt performative. But when he sat at their small table, twirling pasta while Stacy chattered about her day, something shifted. This felt like family. The thought terrified Nadia more than anything William had ever done. So then the squirrel climbed all the way up the tree, Stacy was saying, and Rich said squirrels are basically tiny acrobats, and I said I want to be a tiny acrobat, and he said I'd be great at it. You would be, Rich agreed. You're fearless. Mama says being fearless is different from being brave. Fearless means you don't see danger. Brave means you're scared, but you do it anyway. Stacy looked at Nadia. Right, Mama? Right, baby. So you're brave, Stacy decided, turning to Rich. Because you're scared of something, but you still do stuff. The silence that followed was sharp. Rich's fork stilled. Nadia watched something flicker across his face. Surprise, then recognition, then something darker. What makes you think I'm scared? He asked carefully. You get this look sometimes. Stacy tilted her head, studying him with unsettling perception. Like when you talk about your mama, or when you look at the big house. You get sad scared. That's what I call it. Rich set down his fork, slowly. Sad scared. That's very wise. I get sad scared about Daddy, Stacy said matter-of-factly. I'm scared he'll come back, but I'm also sad because I remember when he was nice, before he got mean. Nadia's hand found her daughter's. Sweetheart. It's okay, Mama. I know you get sad scared too. I see it. 5 years old, and she carried the weight of the world on small shoulders. Nadia wanted to gather her up, shield her from every hard truth. But Stacy was already pulling away, clearing her plate with careful responsibility. I'm going to brush my teeth and put on pajamas, she announced. Can Rich read me a story tonight? Baby, Rich is busy. I'd like that, Rich said quietly. If your mama says it's okay. Nadia looked between them. This child who trusted too easily, and this man who shouldn't be trusted but kept showing up anyway. One story, then bed. Stacy cheered, darted to the bedroom, left Nadia and Rich in weighted silence. "You don't have to," she started. "I want to." Rich stood, started clearing plates with practiced efficiency. "She reminds me of someone." "Who?" "Me. When I still believed grown-ups could keep you safe." The admission hung between them. Nadia joined him at the sink, their shoulders brushing in the small kitchen. What happened to that kid? He learned that safety is an illusion. Rich's hands stilled in the soapy water. And that the only person you can trust to protect you is yourself. That's lonely. It's survival. It doesn't have to be both. Rich turned to face her, and in the soft kitchen light he looked younger, vulnerable, like the little boy in the photograph, before life carved him into something harder. "I don't know how to be anything else," he admitted. Before Nadia could respond, Stacy's voice rang out. "I'm ready. Story time." Rich's mouth quirked, almost a smile. "Duty calls." Nadia followed him to the bedroom, watched him settle into the chair beside Stacy's bed, while her daughter handed him a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are. The book had been Nadia's as a child, pages soft from countless readings, spine cracked from love. "This one's my favorite," Stacy declared, snuggling under blankets. "It's about a boy who gets to be wild and then comes home where someone loves him best of all." Rich opened the book carefully, like it might break. Then he began to read. His voice was different here. Softer, gentler, like he'd found a register he didn't know he possessed. Nadia leaned against the doorframe, watching this feared man read about wild things and home, and felt something crack open in her chest. By the time Max sailed back home, Stacy was drowsy, eyes half closed. "Rich?" she mumbled. "Yeah? If my daddy comes back, will you protect us?" The book slipped slightly in Rich's hands. He glanced at Nadia, found her frozen in the doorway, then looked back at Stacy. "Yes. Promise?" "I promise." "Good." Stacy's eyes drifted closed. "'Cause you're like Max's mama. You let us be wild, but you make us feel safe." She was asleep before Rich could respond. He sat there for a long moment, staring at this small girl who'd handed him her trust like it was worthless instead of precious. Then, slowly, he stood, set the book on the nightstand, and followed Nadia into the living room. "She shouldn't have asked that," Nadia said immediately. "I'll talk to her." "Don't." "Rich," she asked because she's scared, and she's right to be scared. His voice was tight. "I ran that background check on your ex-husband, William Carter, former Chicago PD, discharged for excessive force. 3 domestic disturbance calls to your old address. Restraining order filed and dropped." He paused. "Dropped because he threatened you." Nadia's stomach turned to ice. "How do you—" "Police reports are public record if you know where to look. And I know where to look." Rich's jaw was tight. He's been calling from different numbers, leaving voicemails saying he's coming for what's his. "That's you. That's Stacy." "I know what he means." "So, why aren't you taking it seriously?" The question detonated. Nadia's hands clenched. "Don't you dare tell me I'm not taking this seriously. I changed our names. I moved 3 times. I blocked every number, avoided every place he might look. But you went back to the same neighborhood, the same side of town. Why?" "Because I can't afford anywhere else." The words ripped out, raw and honest. "Because I'm drowning in debt and barely making rent, and my camera equipment is held together with prayers. Because I don't have the luxury of running somewhere safe. I just run somewhere slightly less dangerous and hope it's enough." Silence. broken only by Nadia's ragged breathing. Rich's expression shifted, softened. "You're right. I'm sorry." The apology was so unexpected it stole her momentum. "What?" "I was out of line. I don't know what it's like to have no options." He scrubbed a hand over his face. "I just know that man is dangerous, and I know you're exhausted, and I know—" "What? What do you know?" "I know I can help." Rich met her eyes. Real help, not charity, a job, security, protection. For both of you. Nadia's heart hammered. "What kind of job?" "I need a photographer. Events, properties, legitimate business documentation. It pays well. Comes with housing. Staff quarters in the main house. Separate wing. Safe. Secure." He paused. "Permanent if you want it." The offer hung in the air, huge and impossible and exactly what she needed, which made it terrifying. "Why?" Nadia's voice cracked. "Why do you care this much?" Rich was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed to the window, looked out at the snow-covered grounds. "When I was 7, my father came home drunk. Started hitting my mother in the kitchen. She told me to run, to get help, so I did. I ran to the neighbors, to the building super, to anyone who would listen." He stopped. Swallowed. No one came. They all had excuses. Not their business. Didn't want trouble. By the time I got back, she was unconscious on the floor. She died 3 days later from internal bleeding. Nadia's hand covered her mouth. I swore that day, standing in that hospital room, that if I ever had power, I'd use it to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Rich turned, eyes bright with something that looked like tears but didn't fall. "You're not my mother. Stacy's not me, but I can't watch another woman tell her daughter to run and have no one answer." The words settled into Nadia's bones. True. Painfully true. And completely unfair because she'd been so determined not to need him, not to rely on him, not to let this dangerous man become necessary. But standing here in this borrowed cottage, with her daughter asleep in the next room and her ex-husband circling closer, she couldn't afford pride. "One condition," she heard herself say. "Anything. This is business, not rescue. I work, I earn. Nothing's free." Agreed. "And if it doesn't work out, we leave. No questions, no obligations." Agreed. Nadia exhaled slowly. Okay. I'll think about it. Take all the time you need." Rich moved toward the door, pulled on his coat. "But Nadia?" She looked up. "Your ex-husband made calls to 3 of your clients yesterday, asking about you, where you're living, if you've seemed scared." Her blood went cold. "What did they—" 2 hung up. 1 gave him your old address." Rich's voice was gentle but firm. "He's not going to stop. And eventually he'll find you. The question is whether you want to face him alone or with help." He left before she could respond, the door clicking shut with quiet finality. Nadia stood in the silent cottage, listening to Stacy breathe in the next room, and felt the walls closing in. She had 48 hours before her lease was up at the broken apartment. 48 hours to decide if she'd run again, or if she'd finally, terrifyingly, let someone stand beside her. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the world in white. Inside, Nadia made her choice. Moving day came with unexpected sunshine, and Marcus appearing at dawn with a truck. "Boss said you might need help with your things," he said, matter of fact, like relocating a single mother and child into a mob boss's mansion was Tuesday routine. Nadia had spent 2 sleepless nights second-guessing her decision. But when she'd returned to her apartment to collect their belongings, she'd found the door jimmied open, her few possessions scattered, and a note on the kitchen counter in William's handwriting, Found you. She'd grabbed what she could carry, called Rich with shaking hands, and hadn't looked back. Now, standing in the main house's east wing, 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, windows that overlooked grounds where Stacy could play safely, she felt the weight of the choice settle into her bones. "This is too much," she said for the 5th time. "It's what we agreed." Rich stood in the doorway, hands in pockets, carefully not crowding her space. "You work, you live here. Standard arrangement." "Standard for who?" "For my employees. You don't have other employees living here." "I do now." His mouth quirked. "Besides, Stacy's already claimed the bedroom with the window seat. Try taking that back." As if summoned, Stacy's voice rang from down the hall. "Mama, there's a reading nook with pillows. Can we put my books here?" Nadia exhaled slowly. "I guess we're doing this?" "You're doing this," Rich corrected quietly. "And you can undo it any time." But they both knew that wasn't true anymore. Not with William circling. Not with Stacy finally sleeping through the night. Not with the way Rich looked at her daughter like she was precious instead of inconvenient. The first week was adjustment. Learning the rhythms of the house, the security protocols, cameras everywhere, guards at the gate, panic buttons in every room. The boundaries that kept this arrangement professional instead of something else. Rich was gone most days. Business, he said vaguely, and Nadia didn't ask for details she didn't want. When he was home, he kept distance. Polite, formal, like they were colleagues sharing space, not 2 people who'd shared grilled cheese and confessions. But at night, when Stacy asked for stories, he appeared. Every single time. "You don't have to do this," Nadia said on the 4th evening, watching him settle into the reading chair that was becoming his chair. "I know." He opened the Velveteen Rabbit, Stacy's choice tonight. "But I want to." "Why?" Rich looked at Stacy, already drowsy and content. "Because no one read to me, and I remember what that felt like." The simplicity of it broke something in Nadia's chest. She left them to their ritual, went to her own room, and tried not to think about how dangerously close this was becoming to family. The job was real. Rich hadn't lied about that. He needed documentation for legitimate properties, restaurants, warehouses converted to lofts, the casino he was negotiating. Nadia photographed spaces, captured angles that made them look upscale and desirable, edited until everything gleamed. She was good at it, better than good. And Rich noticed. "These are excellent," he said, reviewing her work in his office. A massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough leather and dark wood to intimidate anyone. "The investors will love them." "Thank you." Nadia stood awkwardly, unsure of the protocol. Boss and employee? Landlord and tenant? Something undefined and more complicated? "I'm increasing your rate," Rich continued, typing something into his computer. "Standard market value for commercial photography, plus housing, plus—" "You don't have to. I'm not doing charity." His eyes met hers, firm. "You're providing value. I'm compensating appropriately. That's business." "Is it?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "Or is this about your mother?" Rich's jaw tightened. "What?" "You're trying to save us. Make up for what happened to her. But we're not. I know you're not her." He stood, came around the desk, stopped a careful distance away. "But maybe I'm allowed to make different choices now. Maybe I'm allowed to be the person who shows up. And when this goes wrong, when William finds us, or your enemies realize we're here, or... I'll handle it. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." They stared at each other. Tension, crackling. Then Stacy's voice drifted from downstairs, singing off-key, happy, and both of them softened. She's thriving here, Rich said quietly. Can't you just accept that? Nadia wanted to. God, she wanted to. But acceptance meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant someone could hurt you. Still, Stacy was happy, safe, singing. Okay, Nadia whispered. Okay. 3 weeks in, William called. Nadia's new phone, the secure one Rich had insisted on, lit up with an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. The message was slurred, angry, familiar in all the worst ways. I know where you are, Nadia. Shacking up with some rich asshole, playing house with my daughter. You think you can keep her from me? She's mine. You're mine. And I'm coming to remind you. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too bright, walls closing in. Breathe. Rich was there, hands on her shoulders, steady and grounding. Nadia, breathe. She dragged air into lungs that didn't want it. He knows. He knows where we are. He knows you're somewhere in this area. He doesn't know the address. The phone's untraceable. He's fishing. You don't know that? I do know that. Rich's voice was calm, certain. Because I have people watching him. He's in a bar on the south side, drunk and making calls to every number he can find. He's desperate, not strategic. Nadia looked up at him. People watching him. Yes. What kind of people? The kind who ensure he doesn't get within a mile of you or Stacy. It should have scared her. This casual admission of surveillance, of control. Instead, she felt something loosen in her chest. Relief. Terrible, shameful relief that someone else was carrying the weight. I hate that I need this, she whispered. I hate that I can't protect her myself. You've been protecting her alone for years. Rich's hands tightened on her shoulders. Let someone help. That's not weakness. That's survival. Nadia's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing tears, and stepped back. Put distance between them because his hands felt too good, too safe, too much like something she couldn't afford to want. Thank you, she managed. For everything. Rich's expression was unreadable. Of course. He left her in the kitchen, alone with her racing heart and William's voice echoing in her head. She deleted the voicemail, blocked the number, and tried to pretend she wasn't falling apart. Upstairs, Stacy played in, her reading nook, oblivious to the danger circling. Nadia would keep her that way, whatever it cost. The Russian meeting happened on a Tuesday. Nadia didn't know about it until she heard raised voices from Rich's office. Multiple men, tense conversation in accented English. She was passing through the main hall with Stacy, heading outside to the gardens, when the office door opened and 3 men emerged. They looked like violence wearing expensive suits. Cold eyes, hard mouths, the kind of presence that made civilians cross the street. One of them noticed Stacy, smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Montana's got himself a family now, he said in heavily accented English. Soft. Rich appeared in the doorway, expression carved from ice. Alexei, we're done here. We're done when I say we're done. The Russian, Alexei, looked at Nadia with eyes that appraised and dismissed. Pretty thing. Too pretty for this life. You should leave while you can, Malaya, before things get complicated. Nadia's hand found Stacy's, pulled her closer. We're just passing through. Are you? Alexei's smile widened. Montana, you didn't mention you had liabilities now. Changes the negotiation, doesn't it? There's nothing to negotiate. Rich's voice dropped to something dangerous. You want the casino deal, you follow my terms. You don't like it, there's the door. Your terms. Alexei laughed, harsh and cold. You're not in a position to dictate terms. Not when we know. Marcus. Rich's voice cut across him. Show our guests out. Marcus appeared instantly, hand resting casually on his hip where Nadia knew he carried a weapon. The Russians exchanged looks, some silent communication passing between them. Then Alexei shrugged. We'll be in touch. He nodded at Nadia. Pleasure meeting you. And the little one. They left. The door closed. Silence pressed down like a weight. Go outside, Rich said, not looking at Nadia. Take Stacy to the gardens. Don't come back inside until I text. You. Rich. Now, Nadia. The edge in his voice made her move. She gathered Stacy, headed for the door, but glanced back once. Rich stood in his office doorway, shoulders tight, hands clenched, looking like a man barely holding himself together. Outside, the gardens were peaceful. Beautiful. A world away from the tension in that hallway. Stacy pulled her toward the fountain. Mama, why was that man scary? He wasn't scary, baby. Yes, he was. He looked at you mean. And he looked at me, like... She frowned, searching for words. Like I was a toy he wanted to break. Nadia's blood went cold. 5 years old, and already reading danger in adult faces. What kind of childhood was this? You're safe, she said, kneeling to Stacy's level. Rich wouldn't let anyone hurt you. I know. Stacy's certainty was absolute. Rich is like a superhero. He protects people. Baby, it's true. He protects you and me and everyone in this house. That's what heroes do. Nadia pulled her daughter close, pressed a kiss to her hair, and tried not to think about what happened when heroes couldn't save everyone. That night, Rich didn't come for story time. Stacy waited, book in hand, eyes on the door. When he didn't appear after 15 minutes, her lip trembled. Where is he? He's busy, sweetheart. I'll read tonight. But he always comes. He promised. Sometimes grown-ups have to break promises when important things happen. He promised. Tears spilled over. He said he'd always be here for stories, and now he's gone like Daddy and... Nadia gathered her daughter, heartbreaking, as Stacy cried into her shoulder. Not just about the story. About abandonment. About every adult who'd let her down. About the fragile trust she'd given Rich, now seemingly shattered. I'll go find him, Nadia heard herself say. Stay here, baby. I'll bring him back. She left Stacy with Marcus, who'd appeared at the first sound of tears, surprisingly gentle, and went hunting for Rich. Found him in, his office, standing at the window with a glass of something amber, staring out at darkness. She's waiting for you, Nadia said from the doorway. I know. His voice was hollow. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her yourself. I can't. Why not? Because Alexei was right. Rich didn't turn around. You and Stacy are liabilities now. The Russians know about you. They'll use that knowledge. And I can't. I won't let you become leverage. Nadia stepped into the room. So you're pushing us away. For our safety. Yes. That's bullshit. The word felt good, sharp, and clean. You're scared. You're scared because you care, and caring makes you vulnerable, and vulnerable is something you swore never to be again. Rich's shoulders tensed. You don't know. I know you're about to break a little girl's heart because you're too afraid to admit you love her. Nadia moved closer. I know you'd rather hurt her now than risk losing her later. But you know what? You're losing her anyway. Right now. With this choice. Silence. Long and terrible. Then Rich set down his glass. Turned. His eyes were bright with something that looked like pain. She'll be safer without me in her life. She'll be broken without you in her life. Nadia's voice cracked. We both will. The admission hung between them. Too honest. Too raw. I don't know how to do this, Rich whispered. I don't know how to be what you need. You just show up, Nadia said simply. That's all. You show up and you read the story and you prove that promises matter. That's how you do it. Rich looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he moved toward the door. They walked upstairs together, entered the bedroom where Stacy sat with red-rimmed eyes and Marcus hovering awkwardly. I'm sorry I'm late, Rich said, his voice rough. I had something important to handle, but I should have told you. I broke my promise, and that was wrong. Stacy's lower lip trembled. You came. I came. He settled into the reading chair. And I'll keep coming, as long as you want me here. Forever. Rich's eyes met Nadia's across the room. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or promise. Forever, he said. Stacy launched herself at him, small arms wrapping around his neck. He caught her, held her carefully, and Nadia watched this dangerous man cradle her daughter like she was made of glass. When Stacy finally pulled back, she handed him the book. Good night, Moon. This one tonight, she said, because it's about saying good night, but knowing someone will be there in the morning. Rich's throat worked. He opened the book, began to read, and Nadia felt something shift fundamentally. They weren't playing house anymore. This was becoming real. And that terrified her more than anything William could do. The photograph arrived on a Wednesday. Marcus brought it to Nadia's workspace, the small office off the main hall where she edited photos. No envelope, just a picture, printed on standard paper, slightly, crumpled like it had been handled roughly. Stacy, at school, standing by the playground fence, laughing with friends. The photo was taken from outside the fence, from the street, close enough to see her face clearly. On the back, in William's handwriting, beautiful girl, would be a shame if something happened. Nadia's vision tunneled. The photo slipped from numb fingers, floated to the floor like a leaf. Distantly, she heard Marcus on his radio, calling for Rich, but the sound came through. Water. Her daughter. Her baby. Targeted. Photographed. Threatened. Nadia. Rich's voice. His hands on her shoulders, firm and grounding. Breathe. Look at me. Breathe. She couldn't. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything except see that photo. See William's handwriting. See the threat made tangible. Where is she? The words scraped out. Where's Stacy? Safe. She's in the library with Marie. Safe. Rich knelt in front of her, forcing eye contact. I'm pulling her from school today. Private tutors will come here, to the house, where security can monitor. He was at her school. Nadia's voice broke. He was watching her. What if he'd taken her? What if he didn't? He won't. Rich's voice was steel. I'm increasing security. Cameras, guards, everything. He won't get near her. You can't promise that. I can, and I do. His hands tightened on her shoulders. William Carter made a mistake today. He showed his hand, and now I know exactly where he is and what he's planning. Nadia's breath stuttered. Where? South Side. Same apartment he's had for 6 months. My people have been watching him, but he's been careful. Until now. Rich's expression hardened. He's getting desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. What are you going to do? The question hung in the air. They both knew what she was really asking, what he was capable of, what line he'd cross. What needs to be done? Rich said finally. Don't. Nadia grabbed his jacket, fingers twisting, inexpensive fabric. Don't kill him. Please, I don't want... Her voice cracked. I don't want Stacy to lose her father that way. She already lost who he was. Don't make her lose him permanently. Rich's jaw tightened. He threatened her. I know. But killing him makes you the monster. And I can't. She couldn't finish. Couldn't say that she was falling for this man, and if he became a murderer, she'd lose him too. What do you want me to do? Rich's voice was strained. Let him keep circling? Keep threatening? Wait until he actually hurts her? I want you to end this without becoming him. Nadia met his eyes. You said you were trying to be different. Prove it. Silence. Rich's hands dropped from her shoulders. He stood, paced to the window, stood with his back to her. There are other ways, he said finally. Legal ways. He violated the restraining order. That's prison time. And I have connections in the justice system. I can ensure he stays there. Can you? Yes. He turned, and his expression was certain. I can make sure William Carter never touches you or Stacy again, without killing him. But Nadia, his voice dropped. This is the last time I show mercy. If he tries again, if he gets past security, if he so much as looks at Stacy wrong. I understand. Do you? Rich crossed back to her, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his gray eyes. Because once I do this, once I use these resources, you're mine to protect. Not temporarily. Not until it's convenient. Mine. And I don't let go of what's mine. The possessiveness should have scared her, should have sent her running. Instead, she felt something hot and dangerous coil in her stomach. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Make him go away. Keep us safe. Whatever you need to do. Rich's eyes searched hers, looking for doubt. Finding none, he pulled out his phone, stepped away, made a call in low tones she couldn't hear. When he returned, his expression was resolved. It's done. Police will pick him up tonight. Evidence of the restraining order violation, plus some other charges they've been building. He'll be in custody by morning. Just like that. Just like that. Rich's mouth quirked without humor. Turns out having judges and prosecutors in your pocket has advantages. That's corruption. That's survival. He looked at her steadily. You want to debate ethics, or you want your daughter safe? Nadia's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, but it can be survivable if you make the right choices. Before she could respond, Stacy's voice drifted from the library. Mama, can I come out now? Marie says we're reading about butterflies. Nadia's eyes closed. Right. Her daughter. Her beautiful, innocent daughter who thought the world was safe because Rich made it so. I'm coming, baby, she called back. When she opened her eyes, Rich was watching her with an expression she couldn't name, something between hunger and reverence. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet. His voice was rough. This war isn't over. William was arrested at 2 a.m. Marcus delivered the news at breakfast with clinical efficiency. Carter's in custody, no bail, court date set for 2 weeks. Nadia's hands shook around her coffee cup. And then? Then he goes to prison for violating the restraining order. Minimum 18 months. Boss's lawyers will ensure he serves the full sentence. 18 months. Not forever, but breathing room. Time for Stacy to heal, to grow, to forget the sound of William's fists and the look in his eyes when he drank. What if he makes bail? She asked. He won't. Marcus's certainty was absolute. Boss has friends in the DA's office. This one's personal. After he left, Nadia sat with that word. Personal. When had she and Stacy become personal to Richard Montana? When had they crossed from responsibility to something more? Mama, you're smiling, Stacy observed, munching cereal. Does that mean the bad stuff is over? Some of it, baby. Some of it. Good. Stacy swung her legs happily. Because I like it here. I like Rich and Marcus and Marie and having a big house and feeling safe. Can we stay forever? Forever. That word again. We'll see, Nadia said, because she didn't know how to explain that forever was a luxury they might not be able to afford. That evening, Rich asked her to dinner. Not in the kitchen with Stacy. In the formal dining room, just the two of them after Stacy was asleep. Candles, wine, the kind of dinner that looked like a date even if no one called it that. Is this weird? Nadia asked, smoothing her dress, borrowed from Marie because she didn't own anything this nice. Probably. Rich pulled out her chair. But I wanted to talk without little ears listening. About? About what happens next. Nadia's stomach flipped. She sat, accepted wine she was too nervous to drink, watched him settle across from her with that controlled grace that made him simultaneously attractive and terrifying. William's handled, Rich said. But there are other threats. The Russians, business rivals, people who'd use you and Stacy as leverage if they knew how much you matter. How much we matter, Nadia echoed. And how much is that? Rich's eyes met hers. Too much. The admission hung between them, heavy and honest. I have a proposal, he continued. A real one, not an ambush. You stay here permanently, not as an employee, as family. You and Stacy, protected, provided for, safe. In exchange for what? Nothing. There's always an exchange. Not this time. Rich leaned forward. I'm not buying you, Nadia. I'm not collecting you like a possession. I'm offering protection because I care. About both of you. More than I should. More than is smart. Nadia's breath caught. Rich, you don't have to answer now. Take time. Think about it. But know that regardless of your answer, you're safe here. Both of you. That doesn't change. Why? The question came out smaller than intended. Why do you care this much? Rich was quiet for a long moment. Then, because when Stacy looks at me, she doesn't see a monster. She sees someone worth trusting. And when you look at me, he stopped, swallowed. When you look at me, I almost believe I could be the man you see instead of the one I am. Nadia's eyes burned. I see exactly who you are. Someone who reads bedtime stories and protects people weaker than him and tries so damn hard to be good even when the world tells him it's pointless. That's not who I am. It's exactly who you are. She reached across the table, let her hand rest near his. You just don't want to admit it, because then you'd have to accept that you deserve happiness. Rich stared at her hand. Slowly, carefully, he covered it with his own. The touch was electric, palm to palm, fingers interlacing, something clicking into place that felt inevitable. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. How to be this, for you, for her. You're already doing it. Nadia squeezed his hand. You just don't realize. They sat like that, hands joined across the table, until Marcus interrupted with news that shattered everything. Boss, we have a problem. Rich's expression closed off instantly. What problem? The Russians. They took the bait on the casino deal, but they're demanding a meeting. Tomorrow. Neutral ground. Marcus's eyes flicked to Nadia. And they specifically requested you bring your family. Nadia's blood went cold. What? It's a power play, Rich said, voice hard. They want to see if I'll put you in danger or protect you. Either way, they learn something. So we don't go, Nadia said. We refuse. If I refuse, they'll assume you're my weakness. They'll push harder, target you directly. Rich's jaw tightened. If I bring you, I show you're protected, untouchable. It sends a message. You want to use us as props in your mob politics? I want to keep you alive. Rich's voice rose slightly. You think like this? You think I want to parade you in front of men who'd kill you without blinking? But if I don't establish boundaries now, if I don't show them you're under my protection, they'll come after us anyway, Nadia finished. Yes. Silence. Nadia pulled her hand from his, felt the loss immediately. I won't put Stacy in danger, she said firmly. Agreed. Stacy stays here, locked down, full security. This is about you and me presenting a united front. As what? Couple? Business partners? What are we pretending to be? Rich's eyes were intense. Whatever keeps you safest. The non-answer was an answer. Nadia stood, suddenly exhausted. I need to think. Nadia, I said I need to think. She left the dining room, left the half-eaten meal and the wine, and the man who'd just asked her to walk into danger for the sake of strategy. In her room, she paced, angry, scared, confused about what she'd signed up for and whether she'd made a terrible mistake. A soft knock interrupted her. Spiral. Mama? Stacy stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. I had a bad dream. Can I sleep with you? Of course, baby. Come here. They curled together in bed, Stacy's small body fitting perfectly against hers. Safe, warm, alive. This was what mattered. Not Rich's business, or the Russians' games, or the complicated dance of power and protection. Just this, keeping her daughter safe, even if it meant walking into the lion's den tomorrow. Mama? Stacy mumbled, half asleep. Is Rich going to stay forever? Nadia stroked her hair, stared at the ceiling, and wished she knew the answer. I hope so, baby. I hope so. The restaurant was elegant in that understated way that screamed money, dim lighting, private booths, staff who knew to see nothing and remember less. Nadia sat beside Rich in a corner booth, hyper-aware of the weight pressing against his side. A gun. He was armed. So were Marcus and two other men stationed near the entrance. Across from them, Alexei sat with two associates, who looked like they ate violence for breakfast. The Russian's smile was all teeth and no warmth. Montana, and the lovely photographer. Alexei's eyes traveled over Nadia in a way that made her skin crawl. How domestic you've become. Let's keep this professional, Rich said, voice level but edged with warning. You wanted to discuss the casino deal, so discuss. In time. Alexei signaled the waiter, ordered vodka in rapid Russian. First, I want to understand this new development. You've never been the family type, Montana. What changed? My personal life isn't your concern. Oh, but it is. Alexei leaned forward. Because personal attachments create vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities affect business. So tell me, is she worth it? Worth risking your empire for a woman and her brat? Rich's hand found Nadia's under the table. Squeezed once. A warning or reassurance she couldn't tell. Watch your mouth, Rich said quietly. The words carried more threat than any shout. Or what? You'll start a war over her? Alexei laughed. That would be very stupid, Montana. Very stupid indeed. The tension ratcheted higher. Nadia felt eyes on them from other tables, patrons trying not to stare, sensing danger the way prey senses predators. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was a mistake. She shouldn't be here. Stacy was home with armed guards, and Nadia was sitting across from a man who looked at her like a chess piece to be captured or eliminated. Then Alexei's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, read something that made his expression shift from amused to calculating. Interesting. What? Rich's voice was carefully neutral. Your former policeman problem, William Carter. Alexei's smile returned, sharper now. He's been released. Apparently someone posted bail an hour ago. Anonymous benefactor. The world tilted. Nadia's breath stopped. You're lying, Rich said, but his hand tightened painfully on hers. Am I? Alexei showed his phone, a news alert about William's release, pending trial. My sources say he walked out of county lockup at 4 p.m. That was... He checked his watch. 30 minutes ago. Wonder where he is now. Rich was already moving, pulling Nadia up, signaling Marcus. We're leaving. But the deal... Fuck the deal. Rich's mask cracked, showing the fury beneath. You set this up. You had him released. I merely provided opportunity. Alexei stood slowly. You wanted to play family man, Montana. But family makes you weak. Makes... You choose between empire and protection. And now we'll see which matters more. Rich shoved Nadia toward Marcus. Get her to the car. Now. What about you? I'll handle this. Go. Marcus had her arm, was pulling her through the restaurant. Behind them, voices rose, Rich and Alexei, sharp and threatening. Then a crash, glass breaking, someone shouting. Don't look back, Marcus ordered, hustling her outside where a car waited, engine running. Get in. Nadia obeyed on autopilot, tumbling. Into the back seat. Marcus slid in beside her, barked orders to the driver. The car peeled away from the curb just as Rich emerged from the restaurant, face dark with rage, phone already to his ear. Stacy, Nadia gasped. We have to get to Stacy. Security's with her, Marcus said, but he was typing rapidly on his phone. Lockdown protocol. She's safe. You don't know that. If William's out, if he knows where we are... Her phone rang. Unknown number. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it. Don't answer that, Marcus warned. But it could be about Stacy. Could be the security team. Could be... She answered. Hello? Heavy breathing. Then William's voice, slurred and triumphant. Hey, baby. Miss me? Nadia's stomach turned to ice. How did you get this number? I have friends in interesting places. Friends who think you and I need to have a conversation. About my daughter. About respect. He paused. About what happens when you try to leave me. I have a restraining order. Piece of paper. Doesn't mean shit. His voice hardened. I'm coming for her, Nadia. Coming for both of you. Your boyfriend can't protect you forever. Eventually he'll slip, and I'll be there. The line went dead. Nadia stared at her phone, the threat echoing in her skull. Beside her, Marcus was already on his radio, coordinating with the security team. The car sped through Chicago streets, weaving through traffic with controlled urgency. ETA 15 minutes, the driver said. 15 minutes. An eternity. Anything could happen in 15 minutes. Nadia closed her eyes, imagined Stacy at home, maybe watching cartoons or playing with her stuffed animals, unaware that the monster from her nightmares had been released and was circling closer. Please, she prayed to whoever might be listening. Please let her be okay. The estate was ablaze with lights when they arrived. Every window illuminated, guards at the gate, more stationed along the driveway. Marcus's radio crackled, constantly with status updates, his expression growing grimmer with each report. What? Nadia demanded as the car stopped. What's happening? Breach attempt, south fence, single individual now in custody. Her blood froze. William? Unknown. Security's processing now. Nadia was out of the car before it fully stopped, running toward the main house. Marcus cursed behind her, but she didn't care. Only one thing mattered. Stacy. She burst through the front door into controlled chaos. More. Guards. Radio chatter. And Rich, standing in the foyer with his phone, jacket off, gun visible in his shoulder holster, looking like the dangerous man he actually was. "Where is she?" Nadia shouted. "Where's Stacy?" Rich's eyes found hers. "Safe. Upstairs with Marie. Locked room. She's fine." The words didn't compute. Fine. Her daughter was fine. But William was out, had called her, had threatened them. "I need to see her. Nadia, now, Rich. I need to see her now." He nodded once, led her upstairs. At the end of the east wing, 2 armed guards stood outside a door. Rich knocked, a specific pattern, and Marie opened it, relief flooding her face. "Ms. Carter, thank God," Nadia pushed past her. The room was a converted sitting area, now functioning as a safe room with reinforced door and communication equipment. And in the center, sitting on the floor with crayons and paper, was Stacy. "Mama!" She looked up, smiled brightly. "We're playing hide and seek. Marie says it's a special game where we have to stay really quiet in this room. Are we winning?" Nadia's knees gave out. She collapsed beside her daughter, pulled her into a crushing hug, breathed in the scent of baby shampoo and crayons and safety. "Yes, baby, we're winning." "Good. I drew you a picture. It's a butterfly, see?" The butterfly was all wrong, proportions off, colors wild, perfect in its 5-year-old confidence. Nadia held it like a treasure, tears streaming down her face. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful. I love you so much." "I love you too, Mama." Stacy pulled back, studied Nadia's face with concern. "Why are you crying? Are you sad, scared again?" "No, baby, I'm just—" She couldn't finish, couldn't explain the terror and relief and bone-deep exhaustion. "I'm just happy you're okay." Behind her, Rich stood in the doorway, watching this reunion with an expression that looked like pain. When Nadia glanced back, he mouthed, "We need to talk." She kissed Stacy's forehead. "Keep drawing. Sweetheart, I'll be right back." In the hallway, with the door closed and guards on alert, Rich pulled her into an empty room. His hands framed her face, thumbs wiping away tears she didn't realize were still falling. "It was William," he said without preamble, "at the fence, drunk, armed with a knife, demanding to see his daughter. Security took him down before he got within 50 yards of the house. Is he alive, in custody, real custody this time? Federal charges for violating the restraining order while armed." Rich's jaw tightened. "He's going away for years, Nadia. I made sure of it." "How?" "I called in every favor I had. FBI, federal prosecutors, judges who owe me. William Carter just became a federal case, and federal cases don't get bail." His eyes burned into hers. "He will never touch you or Stacy again. I swear it." Nadia's breath shuddered out. "The Russians. They orchestrated this." "I know, and I'm handling them." Rich's voice went cold. "They wanted to prove family makes me weak. Instead, they just proved I'm willing to burn their entire organization to protect what's mine. Rich, I love you." The words exploded out, raw and desperate. "I love you, and I love Stacy, and I'm terrified of what that means, but I can't deny it anymore. You asked me what changed? This. You changed me. Both of you. And I will go to war, real war, to keep you safe." Nadia stared at him. This powerful man laid bare, and felt something crack open in her chest. "I love you two," she whispered. "God help me, I do. Even though you're dangerous and complicated and probably terrible for me." He kissed her. Hard and desperate, hands tangling in her hair, tasting like relief and promise. Nadia kissed back, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. Fear and love and trust and the terrifying hope that maybe, Maybe this could work. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Rich pressed his forehead to hers. I'm getting you and Stacy out of Chicago. Somewhere safe, somewhere the Russians can't reach. No. Nadia. No. She pulled back, met his eyes firmly. I'm done running. If you love us, if you want us in your life, then we stand together. Here. We make this home and we defend it. That's dangerous. Everything's dangerous. But at least this way, we're choosing our danger instead of letting it chase us. Nadia's hands found his face, mirroring his earlier gesture. You said you wanted to be different. Prove it. Build something. Instead of just destroying threats. Build a family. Build a home. Build a life where Stacy can grow up safe, not because she's hidden, but because she's protected by people who love her. Rich's eyes closed. When he opened them, they were bright. Okay. Okay? Okay. He kissed her again, softer this time. We stay. We build. Together. Behind them, Marcus cleared his throat. Hate to interrupt, but we need to move the kid to the primary safe room. Russians are making noise about retaliation. Rich's expression hardened. Let them make noise. I'm done negotiating. He looked at Marcus. Call the family heads. Every ally we have. Tell them Richard Montana is declaring the East Side Territory off limits to Russian operations. Anyone who disagrees can take it up with me personally. Marcus's eyebrows rose. Boss, that's final. Rich's voice was steel. No one threatens my family. Not the Russians. Not anyone. Understood. Marcus left, already on his phone. Rich turned back to Nadia. This is going to get ugly. The Russians won't back down easily. There'll be posturing, possibly violence. You sure you want to stay? I'm sure. Nadia took his hand. But we tell Stacy the truth. Age appropriately, but the truth. No more hiding, no more lies. She deserves to understand what she's part of. What she's part of, Rich repeated. A family. Yes, a complicated, messy, probably illegal in several ways family. But a family. His laugh was surprised and genuine. When did you become the brave one? I've always been brave. You just finally noticed. They returned to the safe room, where Stacy had finished 3 more butterflies and was starting on what looked like a dragon. She looked up, eyes going wide at their joined hands. Are you and Rich married now? She asked with the bluntness of children everywhere. Nadia choked. No, baby. Do you want to be? The question hung in the air. Rich and Nadia exchanged glances, something passing between them that needed no words. Maybe someday, Rich said carefully. If your mama says yes. She'll say yes, Stacy declared with certainty. Mama loves you, I can tell. She gets the same smile when she looks at you that she gets when she looks at me. Is that so? Rich's mouth quirked. Uh-huh. So you should ask her. And then we can all live together forever and I'll have a mama and a daddy who's nice. Stacy paused. You are nice, right? Even though you have guns and people call you boss and that scary man at the restaurant called you dangerous. Rich's expression softened. He knelt to her level. Always to her level, Nadia noticed. Always making himself smaller so Stacy felt bigger. I am dangerous, he said honestly. To people who try to hurt my family. But I will never ever hurt you or your mama. That's a promise. Good. Stacy threw her arms around his neck. Because I love you too, even though you're not my real daddy. Rich's arms came around her carefully, like he was holding something precious. Over Stacy's shoulder, his eyes met Nadia's, and what she saw there made her breath catch. Love. Real, honest, terrified love. I love you too, little one, he whispered into Stacy's hair. More than you know. 6 months later, the garden party was Stacy's idea. Because we should celebrate, she'd announced. We have a home and we're safe, and Mama smiles all the time now. So they celebrated. Not a wedding, not yet, but something just as important. The official adoption papers had come through, making Richard Montana legally Stacy's father, making them officially, legally, a family. The gardens were transformed with white tents and flowers and tables laden with food. Friends came, Marcus with his wife, Marie with her grandchildren, even some of Rich's business associates who'd proven trustworthy. People who understood that this family was off limits, protected, sacred. Nadia watched from the terrace as Rich pushed Stacy on the garden swing, both of them laughing. 6 months ago, she'd been freezing in a broken apartment, terrified and alone. Now she stood in a home, their home, watching her daughter play with the man who'd saved them, and then loved them, and then become essential. William was serving 8 years in a federal facility. The Russians had backed off after a tense month of negotiations that ended with territorial agreements and mutual understanding that Richard Montana's family was untouchable. The threats had faded. The nightmares had eased. Life wasn't perfect. Rich still disappeared sometimes for business. Nadia didn't ask about. Security was still tight. Some nights, she still woke gasping, convinced she heard William's voice. But mostly they were just a family. Complicated and unconventional, and built from broken pieces, but solid. "Mama," Stacy called. "Come push me. Rich says I can go really high if you both push." Nadia descended the terrace steps, crossed the lawn to where her daughter soared through air, squealing with joy. Rich caught her eye, smiled that rare full smile he saved just for them. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." They pushed together, sending Stacy higher, her laughter ringing across the gardens. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, Nadia felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. That night, after the guests left and Stacy was asleep, Rich found Nadia in the library. She was curled in the reading chair with a book, the one that had become her favorite spot in the months they'd been together. He knelt beside the chair, always kneeling, always making himself smaller, and pulled a small box from his pocket. "I know we said not yet," he began. "I know we're taking it slow. But today, watching you with Stacy, watching you smile like the weight finally lifted, I couldn't wait anymore." He opened the box. Inside, a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Elegant, understated, perfect. "Nadia Carter, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that dangerous men can learn to be gentle? That broken people can build something whole?" Nadia's eyes filled. She slid from the chair, knelt with him so they were level. Equals, partners, two people who'd found each other in the dark and chosen to build toward light. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it." He slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. When they broke apart, both smiling through tears, Nadia heard small footsteps on the stairs. "I knew it!" Stacy stood in the doorway in her unicorn pajamas, beaming. "I told you Mama would say yes." "You were supposed to be asleep," Rich said, but his voice held no anger, only joy. "I was, but I heard talking, and I wanted to see." Stacy ran to them, wormed her way between them for a 3-person hug. "Are we getting married?" "We are," Nadia confirmed. "You, me, and Rich. A real family." "We were already a real family," Stacy said seriously. "But now it's official, like on the adoption papers." "Exactly like that," Rich agreed, pulling them both closer. "Official and forever." They sat like that on the library floor, a mobster, a photographer, and a 5-year-old who'd brought them together. and felt the pieces click into place. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the city in white. But inside, they were warm. Inside, they were home. Inside, they were everything they'd never dared to hope for. Safe, loved, and finally whole. 2 years later, Stacy stood at the window of her bedroom, the one that used to be Rich's mother's room, transformed now into a space filled with books and art supplies and photographs of their family. "Mama," she called, "it's snowing again." Nadia appeared in the doorway, one hand resting on her rounded belly where Stacy's baby brother grew. "So it is, sweetheart. Remember when we were cold and scared and didn't have anywhere warm to go?" "I remember." "And then we found Rich and he saved us, and now we're happy forever?" Nadia knelt beside her daughter, looked out at the snow that had once meant danger, and now just meant beauty. "We saved each other, baby. That's how it works. We all saved each other." "I like that story," Stacy decided. "It's my favorite." Downstairs, Rich's voice called up, "Dinner's ready, and yes, Stacy, I made grilled cheese." Stacy squealed, grabbed Nadia's hand. "Come on, Mama, Daddy's making our favorite." Daddy. The word still made Nadia's heart catch, even 2 years later. Even now, standing in a home built from impossible choices and brave hearts, and the radical decision to trust when trust felt impossible. They descended the stairs together, toward warmth and safety, and the man who'd learned that the strongest thing you can do is kneel down to a child's level and promise to stay. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, they sat down to dinner. A family built from broken pieces, now whole. And somewhere in the city, in a federal prison, William Carter sat alone, while the people he'd tried to destroy flourished without him. Justice wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just this: a warm house, a loved child, and the quiet certainty that tomorrow would come, and they would face it together. Always together. The end.